She wasn't supposed to solve it. She was supposed to fail, publicly, while parents watched and laughed. But when a substitute teacher forced 14-year-old Nyla to solve a college-level equation as a joke, the classroom turned into a stage, and humiliation into history. What happened next didn't just silence the room. It shook an entire school district. But instead of applause, they accused her of cheating. Before we deep dive into this interesting story, subscribe to our channel, and tell us where are you watching from. Share in the comments below. Nyla Walker had always sat in the second to last row, close enough to the board to stay engaged, but far enough back to avoid being noticed. At 14, she knew how to blend in. That was survival. At her predominantly white middle school in suburban Michigan, being invisible felt safer than standing out. It was a Friday morning in October, the kind of day where students count the minutes to the weekend. The math classroom buzzed with restless energy, students tapping pencils, whispering in clusters, their attention scattered, but there was a different kind of buzz today. Parents were visiting. Part of the school's Open Classroom Day initiative, where select parents sat in on lectures to observe teaching methods, an image-building event. But Mr. Hawkins, the regular 8th grade math teacher, was out sick. In his place stood a man none of them had seen before. Mr. Reeves, a tall, lean substitute in his early 50s, with graying temples and a voice too smooth to try. He wore a beige cardigan and loafers, the kind of outfit that tried too hard to look harmless. "All right, folks," Mr. Reeves said, clapping his hands with artificial enthusiasm. "Today, I want to do something special. We're going to challenge ourselves. Push our limits." He turned to the whiteboard and, with a long squeak, wrote out a massive algebraic expression, way above their grade level. Then he underlined it twice. The classroom stilled. It was clearly a senior-level math problem, the kind of equation only students preparing for AP Calculus would recognize. Most of the 8th graders didn't even know where to begin. A murmur rippled through the room. One of the parents laughed softly in the back. Mr. Reeves turned around, scanning the class theatrically. "Now, who should I pick?" he asked, rubbing his chin like a game show host. Nyla kept her eyes locked on her notebook. "Ah," Mr. Reeves pointed suddenly. "You, in the maroon hoodie. What's your name?" Heads turned. Nyla slowly raised her eyes. Her stomach dropped. "Nyla," she said quietly. "Stand up, Nyla," he said. She hesitated. Her fingers clutched the edge of her desk. He raised his eyebrows. "Come on up. Let's give her a round of applause, folks." A few students clapped mockingly. Someone whistled. Nyla stood, her legs stiff. The walk to the board felt eternal. Her sneakers barely made a sound on the linoleum floor, but in her ears, it roared. She could feel the eyes on her. Students, parents, Mr. Reeves. Watching. Waiting. "This here," he said, pointing to the problem, "is something most high school seniors struggle with. But I have a feeling you're up for the challenge." There was a strange tone in his voice. It wasn't encouragement. It was amusement. From the back, someone snickered. A white student named Camden whispered, "She ain't solving that. She barely talks." Nyla didn't respond. She looked at the board. Her mind raced. Why her? Was it random? Or did he pick her because she was the only black girl in the room? "Whenever you're ready," Mr. Reeves said, stepping back. She glanced at the marker in the tray. "Take your time," he added with a smirk. "We've got all period." The laughter wasn't loud, but it was thick with condescension. In Nyla's chest, something cracked open. A dull ache from years of being overlooked, underestimated, and now publicly mocked. Her face stayed neutral. Her silence, however, wasn't passive. It was volcanic. She looked back at the board. The problem was a beast, nested functions, a system of inequalities, and a limit approaching zero. The kind of math that intimidated even the smartest 12th grader. But Nyla saw something else. She saw patterns. She saw symmetry. She saw solutions. Back in 3rd grade, her grandmother, who worked as a janitor at a local community college, used to bring home discarded textbooks. Nyla devoured them in secret. Math wasn't just numbers to her. It was a language, and she was fluent. But no one at school ever saw that part of her. They only saw her hoodies, her silence, and the color of her skin. Now, they would see more. She stepped forward, picked up the marker. The class laughed louder now, thinking the show was about to begin. The joke, the stumble, the collapse. Mr. Reeves chuckled softly, folding his arms. No pressure. But Nyla wasn't hearing them anymore. She clicked the cap off the marker, paused, and wrote the first line. At the back of the room, a parent leaned forward. In the front row, a white girl named Savannah frowned. Nyla wrote faster now. Her hands moved with precision. Her eyes scanned the word like an architect sketching blueprints. Line by line, she attacked the problem, breaking it into parts, reorganizing terms, isolating variables. It wasn't showy, it was surgical. The laughter faded. Mr. Reeves uncrossed his arms. Camden whispered again, but no one responded this time. The room grew still. 5 minutes passed. Nyla stopped, stepped back. The board was filled with equations. And at the bottom, the correct answer. Silence. No one clapped. No one laughed. Mr. Reeves stared at the board, then at Nyla, then back at the board. That's not possible, he said, his voice unsure now. I double-checked it, Nyla said, her voice calm, flat. A parent stood, walked to the front, whispered something to Mr. Reeves. He shook his head. She whispered again. Mr. Reeves cleared his throat. Well, class, let's take a short break. But it was too late. Nyla was already walking back to her seat, the marker still in her hand. As she passed Camden, he stared at her like she was someone else. Like maybe she'd always been. Savannah leaned back, speechless. And Mr. Reeves? He didn't say another word. The parents began whispering. The students exchanged glances. And Nyla? She sat back down, quietly, and opened her notebook again. It wasn't about the math anymore. It was about everything that came next. Because in that room, in those few minutes, a boundary had been crossed, and not everyone was ready for what that meant. Just as the class bursts into laughter, Nyla calmly picks up the marker, without saying a word. The marker in Nyla's hand felt oddly light, like it belonged to someone else. But as she stared at the whiteboard, everything else, Mr. Reeves' smugness, the classmates' laughter, the judgmental parents behind her, blurred into static. What remained was the language she had loved in silence, since she was 8, math. This wasn't just about solving a problem. It was about surviving one. She read the equation again, dissecting its bones. A system of two nonlinear equations, layered in fractional expressions, with a final step that required a limit approach, a deliberately cruel mix. Any student not familiar with advanced algebra and pre-calc would fold under pressure. That was the point. It wasn't a real challenge. It was a public spectacle. A trap. She exhaled once. Then she started writing. First, she multiplied both sides by the least common denominator to clear the fractions. Then she substituted the inner variables, isolating x with a change of base simplification. Moves so precise they stunned the room into silence. 7 lines in, Mr. Reeves stepped closer to the board. Not to help, to inspect. She didn't flinch. Her marker kept gliding, her math building like music with every step, a rhythm only she could hear. She reached the 8th line, simplified again, dropped constants, then used a trigonometric identity in a way few high schoolers would think to. The final line hit the board like a punch. X, Z. Then she circled it, turned, sat back down. The entire classroom had frozen. Camden's jaw hung open. Savannah blinked like she was waking from a dream. Even the parents looked at each other in disbelief, unsure of what they'd just witnessed. Mr. Reeves cleared his throat too slowly. That can't be right. Nyla looked at him. It is. The substitute didn't respond. He walked slowly to the board, squinting at each step. He started redoing the steps quietly, line by line, murmuring to himself like he was trying to prove her wrong. But he couldn't, because she was right. Every transformation, every reduction, spotless. He reached the final answer. His face flushed a strange color, somewhere between confusion and disbelief. Then, sharply, he stepped back. I've never seen anyone solve that problem that fast, he muttered. A parent stood. Isn't that a college-level equation? It's on the SAT subject test in math level 2, Mr. Reeves said, his voice losing its warmth. But this is 8th grade, the parent replied. From the back, another voice chimed in. A man's. So what's the problem? She solved it. Mr. Reeves didn't answer. His lips pursed. He turned back to the board. Nyla said nothing. For her, the solving was instinctual, like breathing under pressure. She didn't even feel proud. She felt aware that the silence in the room had changed shape. It wasn't the silence of awe. It was the silence of disbelief, of something wrong happening in slow motion. A whisper from Camden broke the quiet. She cheated. Nyla didn't react. She probably saw it on TikTok or something. Savannah added, forcing a laugh. That's a popular one. She's right, Mr. Reeves said suddenly. The words hit like glass shattering. She must have seen it before, he continued, turning from the board. That's the only explanation. The air left the room. What? A parent asked, confused. Mr. Reeves nodded firmly, now building momentum. I've taught this problem for years. It's not one you just figure out cold. There's no way she did this on her own. She must have seen it somewhere. Nyla blinked. It was the first time she'd ever seen someone try to erase her brilliance with such composure. You're saying she cheated? Asked a woman in the back, her tone sharp now. I'm saying she had prior exposure, Mr. Reeves said, carefully choosing his words. It's not uncommon. Some students memorize problems online to look impressive. There was a long, uncomfortable pause. Nyla's hands were stiff, her voice calm. I've never seen it before. You expect us to believe that? Camden sneered. You barely passed last semester.
That's not true, Nyla said.
I read her file, Mr. Reeves added. She's not even in the advanced track. I didn't ask to be, she replied. And there it was. The quiet indictment no one had dared speak, until now. She wasn't in the gifted program. She wasn't part of the mathletes. She didn't attend extra tutoring sessions, because no one ever offered. In the silence that followed, Nyla's eyes shifted. Something clicked in her mind, not the solving part, the knowing that in this room, her talent wasn't just unbelievable. It was unacceptable. I think we need to be careful before handing out praise, Mr. Reeves continued. There's a fine line between achievement and mimicry. That was when Mrs. Mahoney, a white parent and former engineer, stood up. I solved that problem once, she said firmly. In college, it took me 30 minutes. Everyone turned. She did it in 5. Let's not pretend we don't know what this is about. Mr. Reeves stiffened. Excuse me? You heard me, she replied, looking directly at him. You didn't expect her to solve it. And when she did, instead of being impressed, you looked for a way to discredit her. He started to respond, but she cut him off. And you read her file. Why? You didn't ask anyone else for their GPA. Other parents began murmuring in agreement. But Mr. Reeves stood his ground. This isn't about race. It's about standards. No, Mrs. Mahoney said, voice rising. It's about power. Suddenly, the assistant principal, Mr. Fowler, stepped into the room. He'd heard the last few words from the hallway, clearly alerted by the rising tension. What's going on here? He asked. Mr. Reeves turned, eager to regain control. We had a situation. A student solved a problem far beyond the curriculum, and I'm simply raising questions about its validity. Mr. Fowler looked to Nyla, then to the board, then to the parents, and then back to Mr. Reeves. We'll discuss this privately, he said flatly. Mr. Reeves hesitated, but nodded. The class was dismissed early. Students grabbed their bags, whispering. Parents exited slowly. Mr. Reeves and Mr. Fowler remained behind, but Nyla didn't move. She sat at her desk, notebook closed, hands in her lap, her face unreadable. Camden passed her and muttered, You still don't belong here. She didn't look at him. She didn't need to, because in her chest, something new was blooming. Not pride, not even anger, conviction. Instead of praise, the teacher accuses her of cheating, fueling a fire no one can put out. When Monday came, Nyla expected silence, maybe avoidance. She thought she'd return to school and find the air had shifted, that maybe her classmates would just ignore what happened, pretend it never did. She was wrong. The shift was real, but it wasn't silence. It was something colder. She stepped into the hall and instantly felt it. Heads turned too quickly. Whispers died too fast. Eyes trailed her with a strange blend of curiosity and contempt. No one said it outright, not yet, but their faces said enough. By second period, her desk had been moved. Without warning, from the center of the classroom to the far back corner, she stood frozen, unsure if it was a mistake. The teacher didn't look up, just pointed to the empty seat in the back, as if that had always been her place. By lunch, her table was empty. The girls she sometimes sat near, Savannah, Kennedy, Mia, barely glanced at her. She walked past, tray in hand, and they shifted like a flock of birds, quiet but deliberate. She ended up eating alone. Word had spread, and it had mutated. The story wasn't that Nyla had solved an impossible math problem in under 5 minutes. The story was that Nyla had cheated to embarrass a teacher in front of parents. The story was that she'd studied the answer on YouTube to go viral. The story was that she was arrogant, performative, and worst of all, too smart for her place. By third period, students were whispering openly. Did you hear she hacked the district's test server? She probably copied it from her brother. If she has one. She's probably trying to get a scholarship or something. In the hallway, someone coughed and said try hard under their breath. Another voice followed. Affirmative action genius. That one stung deeper. But Nyla said nothing. She kept walking. Eyes forward. Back straight. She knew if she reacted, if she lashed out, it would only confirm what they already wanted to believe, that she didn't belong. That her presence in their gifted orbit was a threat, not an addition. At home, her mother noticed the tension, but Nyla brushed it off, said school was fine, that she was just tired. Her mother, Denise, worked 12-hour hospital shifts as a trauma nurse. Single, exhausted, and still recovering from the debt of Nyla's now deceased grandfather. Denise had always told Nyla to stay focused, stay humble, stay safe. Don't let them see you sweat, she'd say, kissing her daughter's forehead every morning. That's when they come for blood. But the pressure was building. That night, Nyla opened her laptop and found a new comment under the video someone had uploaded of her solving the board problem. This is what happens when schools lower standards. Another said. She probably had the answer on her phone. And then, funny how this never happens with normal students. She scrolled down, heart thudding. A meme had already been made, her face cropped with the caption, Miss Einstein, now available in the discount aisle. 200
No credit. No context.
Just mockery. And in the comments, a stream of laughing emojis, and worse. One comment. She probably thinks she's better than everyone. Send her back to regular math. Another. She's just another smart-mouthed ghetto girl pretending to be smart. Her chest tightened. Her breath shallowed. She shut the laptop. Sat still. This wasn't about math anymore. It was about her. By Wednesday, the whispers turned to actions. During gym, someone stuck a post-it note on her locker that read, Nerd Monkey. No name. No witnesses. She peeled it off, crumpled it slowly, put it in her hoodie pocket. Said nothing. But she couldn't stop her hands from shaking. In English class, when Nyla raised her hand to answer a question about symbolism and of mice and men, the teacher called on Savannah instead, even though Nyla's hand went up first, 3 times in a row. At first, Nyla told herself it was coincidence. Maybe she wasn't loud enough. But by the 4th time, when Savannah stumbled through an answer Nyla knew was wrong, and the teacher still said, exactly, good job, the truth clicked. They weren't ignoring her by accident. They were ignoring her on purpose. In the teacher's lounge, her name was being whispered too. Mr. Reeves had spoken to the department chair, claiming Nyla had created a disruption during open classroom day. He suggested she had an attitude and was not a team player. The language was subtle, coded, but effective. Soon, even the staff looked at her differently. The counselor's weekly check-ins with gifted students? Nyla was dropped from the list. The email thread inviting students to the STEM club? She never received it. The school play needed math-themed backdrops? Nyla's design was overlooked for a simpler one by a student with worse grades. By Friday, she stopped speaking, unless called on. And still, the rumors kept multiplying. The equation she'd solved became a ghost story. Depending on who told it, she had either faked the whole thing, stolen someone else's notes, or memorized an answer to make a teacher look incompetent. No one ever said she was simply brilliant. Brilliance wasn't a word they used for girls like her. Especially not when it made them feel inferior. Then came the theft. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind where lockers stuck and fluorescent lights flickered. Nyla went to grab her math folder, the one she used to scribble formulas, draw equations, write down problems from her old college textbooks, and it was gone. She blinked, checked twice, checked the bottom shelf, the side pockets of her backpack, her binders, gone. A slip of folded paper had been slid into the slot. She unfolded it. Next time, keep your mouth shut. No name. No handwriting she recognized. She felt her throat close. The hallway spun slightly. She looked around. No one was watching. But everyone could have been. She rushed to the main office to report the missing folder. The secretary barely looked up. Are you sure you didn't misplace it? No. It was in my locker. Could be a mix-up. Try checking the lost and found. I already did. Then check again. No offer to call security. No help. Nyla turned away, her stomach burning. She didn't tell her mom. She couldn't. Denise had already picked up 2 extra shifts that week. She didn't need another reason to worry. Instead, Nyla walked home in the rain, the stolen folder haunting her steps like a shadow. That night she sat on the couch, eyes on the TV but not watching. She felt naked, not just exposed, but erased. That folder held years of her work, pages no one had seen, notes she never showed, because she didn't want to be that girl, the one who tried too hard, the one who made others uncomfortable. She should have kept her head down. She should have solved the problem silently. Or maybe not at all. Then came the final blow. Saturday morning, a friend from elementary school, Lana, texted her a link. "Is this you?" Nyla clicked. A screenshot of her stolen notes taken clearly, her handwriting unmistakable, was now circulating on a private group chat and Instagram stories run by senior students at the high school. The caption read, "When you think you're a genius but your folder says otherwise," and underneath, "Notebook Nyla, gifted or grifted." They had photographed her practice pages, scribbles, unfinished equations taken entirely out of context and weaponized them. One page had a scratch through and a wrong answer. They zoomed in on it. One had doodles in the margins. They circled them, mocked them. Comments poured in. "Luameo. She writes like a toddler. This is why you don't let clowns near math. Harvard, more like hard pass." And then, "This is why they stay in basic classes." Nyla stared at the screen. The sound in her ears was a dull roar. Her throat felt tight, but she didn't cry. She closed the app, closed the laptop, sat on her bed, and breathed. Long, slow. Something inside her hardened. Not into anger, into clarity. This wasn't confusion. This was war, and she hadn't started it. But she would finish it. Nyla's math folder is stolen from her locker and posted online with hateful comments. By Monday morning, Nyla had stopped expecting things to go back to normal. She walked through the front doors of Jefferson Middle School, knowing now that normal had never really included her. The difference was, now she could feel it. She didn't just exist at the margins anymore. She was under surveillance. Teachers whispered in their corners when she walked past. Students who had never once spoken to her now stared, their gazes calculated. In every class she felt watched, not in curiosity, but with a silent hostility that hung just below the surface. Like she'd broken an unspoken rule. And perhaps she had. She had solved something she wasn't supposed to. Been better than she was expected to be. Then dared to exist as if that were allowed. As she slipped into her homeroom seat, her phone buzzed. From main office. Subject appointment with Assistant Principal Fowler. Immediately after second period. No explanation. Just a time and location. She didn't react outwardly. She didn't let Savannah or Camden, now whispering across the room about cheaters and liars, see her flinch. But inside, something twisted. It wasn't the first time Nyla had been summoned to the office. But this felt different. The last time had been for honor roll placement. Quietly, with a smile and a certificate. This time she was escorted. The security officer, Mr. Jenkins, didn't say a word. Just gestured for her to follow him as soon as second period ended. As she walked down the main hallway, her heart pounded, not in guilt, but in dread. She had no idea what this was about, but she could guess. The folder, the posts, the video.
Maybe all of it.
She stepped into the assistant principal's office at 10:43 a.m. It was quiet, too quiet. No buzz of phones, no humming computers, just muted fluorescent light and the low creak of an old leather chair. Mr. Fowler didn't look up at first. He was reading a file, her file. She sat down across from him, without being asked. The chair was hard plastic, deliberately lower than his desk. He looked up, closed the folder. "Nyla," he began, adjusting his tie. "How are you today?" She stared at him. "Fine." He nodded, as if her answer was both expected and unimportant. "I want to talk about what's been happening around campus," he said. "A lot of attention has been drawn your way lately." She stayed silent. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "I reviewed the footage, the math problem incident. I saw the social media posts, the memes, the online comments." He paused, expecting a reaction. Nyla didn't give him one. "I also spoke with Mr. Reeves," he added. He expressed concerns, not just about the equation, but about your conduct, your tone. "My tone?" she said quietly. He nodded. "There's been talk among staff that you've become difficult. Unapproachable. She blinked. I haven't said anything to anyone. Exactly, he said. You've gone silent. That worries people. Makes them feel uncomfortable. She stared at him, unsure whether she had just heard him correctly. He folded his hands. Nyla, this school has a certain rhythm, a certain culture, and it only works when everyone understands their place within it. There it was, finally spoken out loud. He wasn't warning her because she'd done something wrong. He was warning her because she hadn't stayed small enough. You've attracted a lot of attention, he continued. And not all of it is good. We've had parents call the office. One even questioned whether we're vetting students properly for our gifted programs. I'm not even in a gifted program, she said flatly. He smiled tightly. That's exactly the point. She inhaled sharply, the pieces clicking together. This wasn't about the problem, or even the folder. This was about the way she disrupted the image of the school, made people ask the wrong question. Let me be honest, he said, voice dipping into something more paternal. There's a spotlight on you now, and with that comes responsibility. She waited. Which means, he continued, you need to be careful. You need to show humility, gratitude. You need to stop drawing so much attention. She blinked. For doing math? For making noise, he snapped. Just barely. Then he caught himself. Softened. This isn't punishment, he added quickly. It's guidance. I want you to succeed. We all want that. But there are ways to do it that won't make others uncomfortable. I didn't make that video go viral, she said. I know, he replied. But you didn't exactly discourage it either. There it was again. The quiet accusation. She didn't play along. She didn't stay in line. She didn't shrink. And now she was being told to fix that. He leaned back. We're asking you to keep a lower profile. No more classroom stunts. No more online engagement. Stay out of the spotlight for a while. Let this blow over. She said nothing. He added, I've spoken with the district. We're going to remove the video link from the school website. You'll be left out of any further coverage or promotional material. Just until things calm down. You're erasing me, she said quietly. We're protecting you. No, she said. You're protecting yourselves. Mr. Fowler's face tightened. You're walking a fine line, Nyla. So are you. For a moment the room held a dangerous kind of stillness. Then he reached for his file again. You may go. Nyla stood slowly. As she opened the door, he said one last thing. Softly, but sharply. You don't want to be seen as a problem, Nyla. Especially not that kind of problem. She didn't look back, but she heard every word.
That evening, Nyla didn't eat dinner. Her mom noticed, but didn't press too tired from another hospital shift to push the issue.
Instead, Nyla sat on her bed, arms wrapped around her knees, replaying the conversation again and again. The way he said noise, the way he said unapproachable, the way he warned her without ever saying the word black. And yet, he had said it with every word. Around 9:47 p.m. she opened her laptop to check her homework portal. One new email notification blinked at the top of the screen. From Elias Research, alum.me. Subject. We saw what you did, and we want to talk. Nyla frowned. Clicked. Nyla, you don't know us, but we've been following your story since the footage went live. What you did on that whiteboard. That wasn't a stunt. That was brilliance. Unmistakable brilliance. We run a private initiative for underrepresented youth in advanced mathematics. Quietly, outside the system that keeps trying to box people like you out. If you're ready to stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable, we'd like to offer you a space, full mentorship, paid travel, advanced coursework, real competition, no one to silence you. Reply if you're ready. We don't wait for permission. We build our own tables. Dr. Elias, director of the Equation Underground. Nyla stared at the screen. For a long time she didn't move. Then slowly her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Her heartbeat was loud now. This was not part of the plan, but neither was genius. That night, Nyla receives a mysterious email with an invitation that could change her life. Nyla didn't respond to the email right away. She reread it 6 times. We build our own tables. The words clung to her like heat. That night, while her mom slept in the room next door, Nyla lay awake staring at the ceiling, imagining what a world could look like where she didn't have to explain herself, defend herself, shrink herself, where her mind didn't scare people, where it earned her a seat. The next morning before school, she replied, I'm ready. By 3:00 p.m., the response came. A Zoom link, one-time access, password protected. 8:30 p.m. sharp. No recordings. No screenshots. Come alone. Nyla closed the email. Heart racing. Palms sweaty. She told her mom she had a late tutoring session online, then locked her door and opened her laptop exactly at 8. At 8:30 the screen flickered. Then came the face. Older, dark-skinned, regal in posture. A salt and pepper beard framed a serious but kind face. His glasses caught the glow of two monitors. Behind him, shelves lined with math books, journals, awards, and a framed photo of what looked like a university lecture hall. He smiled softly. "You're real," he said. Nyla stared. "So are you," she replied. He leaned closer. "I'm Dr. Elias Hammond, former professor of applied mathematics at Brown University, current director of a very private, very selective network of students we call the Equation Underground." She blinked. "Why underground?" "Because brilliance like yours isn't welcome above ground," he said. There was no bitterness in his voice, just clarity. He continued, "We operate outside school systems. We find students, often students of color, who've been pushed out, discredited, ignored. Then we train them, fund them, and launch them into national and international math leagues. Off-record, off-grid, until the system has no choice but to notice." Nyla said nothing. She was still absorbing. Dr. Elias continued, "We've been watching your story. What you did on that board wasn't luck. It was fluency, pattern recognition, elegance under pressure. Those are things we can't teach. They're just there, buried, until someone decides not to be afraid of their own power." Nyla looked away. "Mr. Reeves called me a disruption." "He's right," Dr. Elias said. "You are a disruption. But that's not a bad thing. That's how revolutions start." He leaned back, interlacing his fingers. "You want in?" "Yes." He smiled. "Then let's get to work." What followed wasn't like school. There were no grades. No hall passes. No one telling her to raise her hand or speak quieter. Instead, she was dropped into what felt like a digital war room. Private message boards. Encrypted video calls. Real-time math challenges from other teams across the country. Some were in Detroit. Some in Atlanta. A few as far as Oakland and Chicago. But all of them looked like her. Girls in braids and hoodies. Boys with fades and chipped sneakers. Kids who were called trouble until someone called them gifted. Her first session was a timed logic sprint. 7 problems in 6 minutes. No calculators, no retries. She missed one. A student from DC messaged her afterward. "Welcome to the real league." She smiled. It was the first time in weeks she'd felt good about herself. The challenges got harder. Dr. Elias didn't coddle her. He pushed her. "You move too quickly through your substitutions," he told her on their second week. "That's fine in middle school. It's suicide in the math league." He assigned her complex puzzles, modular arithmetic, game theory, optimization problems that twisted her brain into knots. And she loved it. More than that, she needed it. At school, they were still calling her a fraud, still side-eyeing her in class, still erasing her name from STEM club, invites and group projects. But outside that building, she was growing sharper, faster, better. One night, Dr. Elias sent her a link. Statewide open, regional math qualifier. Optional, deadline 5 days. We think you're ready. She clicked the link. The event was massive, sponsored by tech firms and universities. Hosted in downtown Detroit. Finalists were flown to nationals. Winners got college interviews. Nyla's pulse jumped. She filled out the application that night. There was just one required field she couldn't bypass. School administrator authorization. She stared at it. Her hands hovered. Then, against her gut instinct, she typed in Assistant Principal Fowler's email and submitted it. The next day, she waited. Nothing. She emailed him. No reply. 2 days passed. Finally, on the third morning, as she was heading to science class, she was called to the office. The door was already open when she arrived. Mr. Fowler sat at his desk. The form lay printed in front of him. He didn't look happy. "Sit," he said. She sat. "I received your request," he said, holding up the paper like it offended him. "I need an admin sign-off," she said, "just for entry." He nodded. "I know what it is." She waited. He leaned back. "This event is not affiliated with our district," he said. "It doesn't need to be. It's independent." "But you're not an independent student," he said. "You represent this school when you compete." "I'm not even allowed to compete here," she said. "You all made that clear." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. Nyla, this isn't personal, it's politics. She stared at him. We're under review right now, he continued. The school board's watching. We've had a lot of tension lately. Controversy. You mean me? I mean everything, he said. We're not endorsing outside events during the audit period, especially ones that might provoke more headlines. Nyla's voice dropped. So you're saying no? He nodded once. I'm saying not now. You're scared, she said. No, he replied. I'm responsible. She stood up. This doesn't stop with you. Nyla. She didn't let him finish. She walked out, back straight, eyes forward. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. That night, she sent Dr. Elias a message. They blocked me. 10 minutes later, he replied, We've got a workaround. She qualifies for a statewide competition, but her school refuses to sign her entry form. The timer clicked down. Sharon. Nyla dropped her pencil. Heartbeat steady. Eyes forward. Her exam was finished 5 minutes early. 30 out of 30 questions attempted. At least 27 she knew she'd nailed. Around her, contestants were still scribbling in panic. Even James Harrow across the table wore a tight frown as he checked his math twice. She noticed his eraser smudge a full line as the proctor called time. When the judges came around to collect answer sheets, Nyla passed hers in with quiet confidence. It didn't feel like ego. It felt like control, a rare fleeting sense that maybe, just maybe, her mind wasn't something to apologize for. 30 minutes later, her name lit up on the scoreboard. Qualified. Round 2. Independent. No school affiliation. No coach. Just her name. Just her. Round 2 came faster, sharper. The top half of contestants were now grouped in random head-to-head matches. This time it was logic puzzles, with layered traps, designed not just to test speed or knowledge, but endurance under pressure. Nyla was paired with a boy from Traverse Hills, a school known for its aggressive prep courses. He kept glancing over at her board as if waiting for her to crack, but she didn't. 15 minutes in, she realized the judge overseeing her pod hadn't stopped by her table once. Meanwhile, other students were receiving multiple check-ins. When the round ended, she overheard the judge speaking to the proctor at the door. Make sure to verify her steps. Can't trust calculator kids. She turned. I'm not using a calculator. He blinked. Caught. Right, he muttered. Just saying, double-checking everyone. But he wasn't double-checking everyone. He was double-checking her. Despite the scrutiny, Nyla advanced again. Top 30. Her score was 4th highest. She should have felt proud, but pride couldn't breathe under suspicion. And the suspicion was growing. Round 3 brought the first official twist. The judges announced a sudden change in point allocation. Partial credit, which had been promised in earlier rounds for multi-step problems, would no longer be awarded unless solutions were fully boxed and numbered according to a new rubric that had not been shared before. Students groaned. Nyla flipped through her test booklet. Her problems were clean, her logic sound, but she hadn't numbered the way they now demanded. She approached the proctor. This rule wasn't in the packet. It's an adjustment, he said curtly. Apply it moving forward. But how are the current scores being graded? According to the updated criteria. So we're being penalized for something we weren't told? He didn't respond. She stepped back. Her chest buzzed with frustration. But she swallowed it. James Harrow passed by, smirking. Better brush up on your formatting, he said. This isn't the ghetto math league. She froze. The words hit hard, not for their originality, but for their cruelty, their calculation. She didn't answer. She didn't give him the pleasure. Instead, she focused. Round 4 was elimination style. 10 contestants in the room. 2 problem sets. Top 5 advanced. Nyla moved with precision. Her fingers wrote before her mind finished thinking. Her confidence wasn't loud. It was exact. When time ran out, she stood, handed in her paper, and turned to walk out, only to find 2 judges whispering near the scoring table. One of them glanced at her and said, "We need to verify this one twice." The other nodded. "She's unaffiliated. Needs oversight." She caught that. Didn't say a word. At the end of that round, she advanced again. Top 5. 1 round away from the finals. And then, everything changed. The semifinals were meant to be the purest round. 5 contestants, 1 problem each, chosen at random from sealed envelopes. Solving time 25 minutes. Whiteboards only, no calculators, no feedback, just a single proctor observing each student. Nyla was led into a smaller side room, A glass-walled conference space with only a whiteboard, a timer on the wall, and a single judge seated at the back with a clipboard. The judge, a gray-haired man with a school ID clipped to his sweater, barely looked up. She chose her envelope, opened it, read the problem. Her breath caught. It was one of the hardest she'd seen. Not for the math itself, but the design. It was a trick problem. Recursive probability built on misleading framing. Something most students would try to brute force and fail. But Nyla knew better. She paused, visualized, then began to write. She finished at minute, checked her steps twice, boxed her answer, underlined each transition. The judge stood, walked over, and collected the sheet. Nyla stepped aside, hands trembling just slightly. He left the room. 10 minutes passed, then 15, then 25. A staffer entered. "Excuse me," she said, glancing nervously at her tablet. "Could you return to your station?" "I'm done," Nyla replied. The woman frowned. "Yes, but your paper, it's not here." Nyla blinked. "What?" "The judge hasn't returned it. He said he misplaced it." Nyla stood. "Misplaced? That was my semi-final round." "I understand." "No, you don't." She stepped into the hallway. The judge was nowhere in sight. The woman tried to block her. "Please wait, we're resolving." But another staff member appeared behind them, holding a clipboard. New instruction from the board. If her paper can't be found, she can redo the problem. But only with 10 minutes on the clock. 10 minutes? Nyla said, voice rising. "I had 25. It's the only compromise they're offering." "That's not fair. I'm just the messenger." She looked back at the room, at the board, at the timer. Then she looked ahead at the door to the final round. At James Harrow's name already on the list of confirmed finalists. She could walk away. Or she could make them watch her do it again. In the semifinals, a judge loses her solution sheet, forcing her to redo everything in 10 minutes. Nyla stood in front of the whiteboard, her marker in hand, the timer beneath it displaying one word. The judges said they had lost her original solution, one she had completed flawlessly 20 minutes earlier. There was no apology, no explanation, only a demand. Do it again. In 10 minutes. Everyone in the room knew what this was. A test not of skill but of obedience. They wanted her to panic, to crack under the pressure, to confirm the doubt they already held. But Nyla wasn't built for their comfort. She was built for the truth. The moment she made the first mark, the timer began counting down. 9, 5. Her movements were surgical. She didn't rush. She calculated. The recursive probability question was designed to trick students into brute force. But Nyla saw through the deception. She deconstructed the framework, reversed the logic tree, and applied a conditional probability theorem she'd practiced only a few days earlier with Dr. Elias. Outside the glass wall of the room, no one noticed the volunteer who had stopped walking. She was a college student from Howard University, helping with event logistics. She had overheard 2 judges earlier whispering about losing the black girl's solution. When she saw Nyla return to the whiteboard with only 10 minutes, the volunteer quietly took out her phone and pressed record. No editing, no music, just the raw moment. 5 minutes in, Nyla was halfway through. 7 minutes in, she was boxing variables, isolating answers, underlining conclusions. She never looked up. Not at the judge, not at the timer, not at the students now gathering behind the glass, watching in disbelief. At minute 9 she finished the final line, circled it, stepped back. The timer read, 43 seconds to spare. She turned to the judge. "You want to lose this sheet too?" He blinked, took the paper without a word. Nyla walked out, silent, shoulders high. Behind her the camera stopped recording. The volunteer uploaded the video to TikTok, captioned simply, "They erased her work, so she rebuilt it." In 10 minutes. Within 3 hours, the video had over 400,000 likes. Within 6, 1.1 million. By the time Nyla walked out of the competition building, it was already at 5.2 million views. The comments poured in. "She's a genius."
10 minutes? This is wild.
"Black girls in STEM are not to be played with." They tried to erase her. Look at her now. This is not just intelligence. This is grace under fire. Even celebrities shared it. Athletes, professors, tech CEOs. But the hate followed too. Probably staged. Someone probably fed her the answers. She just memorized it. Doesn't mean she's smart. Affirmative action experiment. This is why schools are failing. Yet none of it could slow the tidal wave of support. Hashtags began to trend. Let Nyla compete. Math is not neutral. Black girl brilliant.
Erase this.
The story was spreading across Twitter, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, even LinkedIn. And Nyla had no idea. She got off the city bus just before sunset. Her hoodie was up, backpack slung over one shoulder. The air was cold, but she barely felt it. Something was off. Her mom's car was in the driveway early. Unusual. As she walked up the steps, she saw them. 2 news vans parked outside, tripods being set up, microphones adjusted, reporters in thick jackets checking their scripts. Her stomach dropped. She opened the door. Her mother, Denise, was standing near the window, phone in hand, face grim. Nyla, she said quietly. Nyla stopped. What's going on? Her mother turned the phone toward her. The screen showed a local news alert. 14-year-old rebuilds math proof in 10 minutes. Goes viral after judges lose her work. Denise's voice tightened. Did you go to a math competition today? Nyla hesitated. Yeah. You lied to me. I didn't want you to worry. You said it was a tutoring session. I couldn't tell the school. They wouldn't let me compete. Her mother didn't reply. She turned back toward the window. They're parked outside. Nyla's heart pounded. They want to interview you, Denise said. All of them. Then the doorbell rang. 3 sharp knocks. Denise opened it. 2 reporters stood on the porch. One of them smiled. Too friendly. Hi, we're from Channel 5. We'd love a quick comment. This is an incredible story. No, Denise said without hesitation. She's not giving a comment. We're here to celebrate her. Not to criticize. She's a child. And she's not your clickbait. Then another figure stepped forward. A tall woman in a navy coat, holding a folder. I'm with the Jefferson School District, she said. I'm here on official business. Denise blinked. Excuse me. We tried calling. I'm delivering this in person. She handed over the folder, then turned and left. Nyla stood frozen. Denise opened the envelope at the kitchen table. Her hands shook. Then she stopped reading and passed it to Nyla. Nyla read it silently. Suspension notice. Student, Nyla J. Walker. Status immediate temporary suspension. Pending investigation. Violations. Academic dishonesty. Misrepresentation of school affiliation. Institutional disruption. Nyla stared at the paper. Her pulse thudded in her ears. I didn't do anything wrong, she whispered. They said you represented the school legally, her mother said. That you made unauthorized media appearances. I competed independently. They refused to endorse me. Denise sat down slowly, eyes glazed. They don't care, she whispered. Nyla looked at her, pleading. You believe me, right? Denise didn't answer right away. That silence, longer than it should have been, broke something in Nyla. But then her mother stood, walked to the sink, turned back, tears now falling freely. I believe you, but they don't. They never did. They don't see us as brilliant. They see us as dangerous. Then she broke down. Nyla had never seen her mother cry like this. Not even when Grandpa died. Not even when the rent jumped and they had to give up the second car. This was different. This was grief, mixed with rage. They'll destroy you, Denise whispered. If they can't control you, they'll crush you. The doorbell rang again. This time it wasn't the media. It was FedEx. Denise signed. Nyla opened the new envelope. Inside, a letter. Clean, professional. Marked with a seal she didn't recognize. She read it slowly. To Miss Nyla Walker, from Dr. Elias Hammond. Raise civil rights action initiated on your behalf. We have filed a civil rights complaint with the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights. The claim outlines systemic racial discrimination, academic obstruction, and procedural misconduct. We are prepared to pursue legal action should the district fail to retract your suspension. We are also holding a press conference Thursday morning. The story has moved beyond education. This is about justice. You are not alone. You were never alone. We are with you. And we're not asking. We're coming. Dr. Elias Hammond. Director, Equation Underground Legal Coalition. Nyla held the letter in her hands, chest heaving. She looked across the table at her mother. He filed for me, she said. Denise stood slowly, wiped her eyes. Good, she whispered. And for the first time in days, Nyla saw something in her mother's eyes that gave her strength. Not fear, not exhaustion, but fight. Dr. Elias reveals he's filed a civil rights complaint on her behalf. And it's going to court. The next morning, Nyla didn't want to get out of bed. Not because she was tired. She hadn't slept. Her phone had buzzed all night. Mentions, notifications, tag after tag. The video of her rebuilding the solution was now being shared by celebrities, tech CEOs, even national educators. A college professor in New York had tweeted, "Give this girl a full ride immediately." But with every retweet came a reply, some glowing, others venomous. Affirmative action already working overtime. Bet she's lying. No real proof she did it twice. Another manufactured victim narrative. Shut up and solve quietly. By 6:15 a.m., she was under the covers, fully awake, heart pounding. And then came the knock. Not at her bedroom door, at the front door. 3 knocks. Heavy. Her mother opened it before Nyla could even sit up. Nyla heard the voices instantly. Denise Walker, a calm, practiced tone asked. "Who are you?" Denise replied. "We're from Channel 5. We're hoping to speak with Nyla."
No.
"Absolutely not. We're doing a positive story, a feature, local genius, national buzz. People want to hear her side." "She's a child," Denise said, voice rising. "And she's not a damn soundbite." Nyla got up slowly, cracked her door open, and peeked down the hallway. Another voice cut in, this one firmer, colder.
Mrs. Walker, I'm with Jefferson School District.
Denise froze. "You were from the district?" A tall woman in a dark navy coat stepped forward, holding a folder. "We attempted to reach you by phone and email. I'm here to deliver this in person. It's urgent." She handed over the envelope, and then turned. Walked back to her car. The news cameras didn't follow her, but the silence she left behind was louder than anything they captured. At the kitchen table, Denise opened the envelope. "Read the first line." Then stopped. She looked up at Nyla. "Sit down," she said. Nyla did. Her mother's hand shook as she handed her the paper. Nyla read, "Pre-student suspension notification. Nyla J. Walker. Date today's date. From Office of Academic Integrity and Conduct. Status, immediate temporary suspension. Pending investigation. Reason, academic dishonesty, misrepresentation of school affiliation, disruption of institutional order." Her vision blurred. "What?" she whispered. "They're saying you represented the school without authorization," Denise said, voice low and trembling. "That you lied about being allowed to compete. That you violated district media policy." "They wouldn't let me compete," Nyla said, barely able to get the words out. "They told me no. I went on my own." "I know," her mother said softly. "They didn't want my name on anything. Now they're acting like I put it there." She couldn't process it. Her brain refused to file the words. "Suspension. Not celebration. Punishment. They're accusing me of dishonesty," she repeated. Denise stood slowly, walked over to the sink, and gripped the counter, her back to Nyla. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. Then Nyla whispered, "You believe me, right?" Her mother didn't turn around, didn't speak, and Nyla's chest collapsed in a way that had nothing to do with the school or the suspension, or even the news vans outside. It had everything to do with that silence. The pause. The question that shouldn't have needed to be asked. And then Denise finally turned. Her eyes were red. Her voice cracked. "Baby, I believe you. I always have. But they don't care what we believe." She walked back to the table and sat, hands clasped, tears starting to fall. "They never have," she whispered. "Not when I was your age. Not when your grandfather was fighting to keep his job at that college. And not now. All they see is someone who's too smart to control, and too black to celebrate." She broke, right there at the kitchen table. Nyla didn't know what to do with that. She'd never seen her mother cry like that. Not even when Grandpa passed. The pressure of the past 48 hours was ripping through every corner of their little home. It wasn't just the school. It was the press, the hate mail in their inbox, the anonymous voicemails left overnight, the reality that the system had been waiting for a reason to punish Nyla, and now it had one. At 11:12 a.m., the doorbell rang again. This time it wasn't media. It was FedEx. Denise signed. Nyla opened it. Inside was a hardcover envelope with a seal she didn't recognize. And a letter, printed neatly, to Miss Nyla Walker, from Dr. Elias Hammond, Director Equation Underground. Urgent. Legal filing notification. Nyla scanned it, mouth slowly falling open. "In response to your unlawful suspension and the systemic suppression of your academic rights, we have filed a formal civil rights complaint on your behalf. The complaint outlines racial discrimination, educational obstruction, and procedural manipulation. We are prepared to escalate to litigation. A press conference is scheduled for Thursday. Your story will not be buried. The system will answer for this. We stand with you. We move with you. This is not about school anymore. This is about history. At the bottom, his signature in black ink. Dr. Elias Hammond, Ph.D., Brown University. The Equation Underground Legal Coalition. Nyla didn't move. The paper felt electric in her hands. Across the table, her mother looked up, her cheeks still wet, but eyes sharpening. She stood. He filed for you? Nyla nodded. Denise exhaled hard, then said, good. And for the first time in days, Nyla saw something return to her mother's face.
Not fear.
Not anger, but fight. Dr. Elias reveals he's filed a civil rights complaint on her behalf, and it's going to court. The courtroom wasn't grand or glossy like in the movies. No marble floors or oak walls, just dull beige tiles, gray-blue chairs, and the scent of old paper and coffee. But to Nyla, it felt like stepping into the center of a storm. 3 weeks had passed since her suspension. 3 weeks since the video of her 10-minute solution had flipped her world upside down. In those weeks, her story had gone from trending to transcendent. She'd become a symbol praised by national think tanks, targeted by trolls, discussed by school boards in closed-door meetings. But today, all the noise would meet the system head-on. The hearing wasn't criminal court. It was administrative. But it had teeth, because the Equation Underground Legal Coalition had done what most never dared. They'd filed a civil rights complaint under Title VI and Title IX, dragging the school and district into federal scrutiny, academic suppression, racial bias, institutional retaliation. At the heart of it all, a 14-year-old black girl in a hoodie, sitting quietly between two lawyers. Nyla wore black jeans and a white blouse, nothing flashy. Her mother sat behind her, fingers interlocked tightly, eyes refusing to blink. Dr. Elias was across the aisle whispering to the lead attorney, Ms. Corinne Alvarez, a calm, fire-eyed woman with a voice that cut like ice. On the school's side, Principal Morris, Assistant Principal Fowler, and 2 board attorneys. Their faces looked polished but stiff, like they'd been warned not to show emotion. The hearing officer, an older black woman with years of experience behind her nameplate, tapped the mic. This hearing is now in session. Ms. Alvarez opened with precision. We are here because a gifted student was silenced for daring to be excellent in a space that did not expect her to be. We are here because when she succeeded, the institution responded, not with pride, but with punishment. She paused. Let the words sit. This case is not about one math competition. It's about a pattern. A school system that could not tolerate brilliance when it came from a girl who looked like Nyla Walker. She stepped back. The hearing officer nodded. Respondent? The district's lawyer, a man in a too tight tie, stood. This is a misunderstanding, a procedural miscommunication. Ms. Walker was not suspended for her performance, but for violating school rules, misleading staff, and participating in unsanctioned media without consent. He turned to the officer. This was about order, not race. Witnesses were called. First, the competition coordinator. He testified nervously that Nyla's performance had been unprecedented, but admitted on record that the solution sheet had disappeared under unclear circumstances. He avoided eye contact when asked if any other student had been required to resolve under a time penalty. Next, Dr. Elias. He spoke not just of Nyla, but of the dozens of other students he had mentored. Black, brown, brilliant, and how many of them had been underestimated, boxed out, or told they didn't fit the mold. She didn't cheat, he said. She disrupted. Then, Mr. Fowler. He took the stand reluctantly. He was careful. Too careful. He repeated phrases like procedural clarity and escalation prevention. When asked why Nyla wasn't allowed to represent the school despite qualifying, he said, it wasn't the right moment. When asked if any white students had ever been blocked from competition due to media exposure, he said, not to my knowledge. And then came Ms. Alvarez's final move. Nyla, please take the stand. Nyla froze. Then the room quieted. She took her seat, adjusted the mic, and looked out over the courtroom past the district officials, past the lawyers, past even her own mother. She found her voice and spoke. I never wanted to be viral, she began. I just wanted to do math. She described the problem she solved, how the room laughed, how Mr. Reeves told her to show them what she had as a joke, how the laughter stopped and the suspicion started. I wasn't celebrated for solving it. I was punished. First with whispers, then with missing folders, then with a judge who lost my work and gave me 10 minutes to do it again. Her voice didn't shake. They didn't want to believe someone like me could do something like that. So they made a new rule to make sure it didn't count. She paused. I did it again, and then they suspended me. Dead silence. Even the school's lawyer looked down at the table. Miss Alvarez stepped forward one last time. Your Honor, we request the immediate reinstatement of Nyla Walker, the removal of all suspension records, and a formal investigation into discriminatory practices at Jefferson Middle School. The hearing officer looked at the board attorneys, then back at the file in front of her. She flipped a page, took a breath, then asked, "Where's the original video the school deleted from its site? The one showing Nyla's first solution, the one that disappeared right after this controversy began." The room shifted, a sharp silence. The school lawyer cleared his throat. "That video is not part of this." The hearing officer cut him off.
I'm requesting it now. I want the original footage. The full video, not the edited file you submitted. The one the parents saw. The one your IT staff removed.
She leaned forward. "And I want it by tomorrow morning." The judge demands to see the original footage the school tried to delete. It began with a sign, a single sheet of notebook paper, taped to the school gates the morning after the hearing, with black marker scrawled across it. "Let her solve." By noon, there were hundreds. Cardboard, poster board, printer paper. "Math has no color. Stop failing black brilliance." She solved it twice. Y'all still can't count. The protest started with 10 students, then 20. By 1:15 p.m., over 200 Jefferson Middle School students walked out of class and stood in front of the school, holding signs, chanting Nyla's name. Nyla wasn't there. She had been instructed to stay home pending further administrative review. So she watched from her front window, TV muted, as news helicopters circled over her school, reporters live-streamed to millions, and students' fists raised, refused to go back inside. "Let Nyla compete" was trending. But it wasn't just online. Local university students held sit-ins. Parents emailed the school board nonstop. Churches added Nyla's name to their bulletins. Civil rights organizations began using her case in webinars and panel discussions. And at the center of it all was a math problem. Once a silent test, now a symbol. People weren't just asking how she solved it. They were asking why she had to solve it again. Why brilliance had to bleed to be believed. Why the system treated her mind like a glitch, not a gift. The footage of the hearing had been quietly leaked by a court clerk. Nyla's testimony, her voice steady, her words clear, became its own viral clip. "I never wanted to be viral. I just wanted to do math." It played on morning news shows, late-night commentary, student-run podcasts, and international news feeds. The message was no longer local. It was global. Principal Morris resigned. Assistant Principal Fowler was placed on indefinite administrative leave. Mr. Reeves, the substitute who started it all, was never seen at Jefferson again. But Nyla wasn't celebrating. Because the damage didn't disappear just because people noticed it. The silence that had followed her for years, the skipped-over answers, the missing invitations, the quiet disbelief when she did something too well, that silence had volume now. And the world was listening. Denise Walker had stopped crying. Now she was pacing, fielding calls from journalists, attorneys, nonprofits. "I'm her mother, not her manager," she kept saying. "She's still a kid." But Nyla wasn't sure that was true anymore. She felt older now. Not because she wanted to be, because the system had forced her to be. The call came 3 days after the walkout. Dr. Elias was the one who broke the news. They were sitting on a video call. Nyla still in her hoodie. Dr. Elias in his usual cardigan, glasses reflecting spreadsheets. "You're not going to believe this," he said. Nyla tilted her head. "What?" "You've got a message request." "From who?" He smiled. "Then read it out loud." "To Miss Walker. I'm writing on behalf of AscendX, one of the fastest growing AI and tech education companies in Silicon Valley. We saw your viral video, your testimony, and your unmatched problem-solving ability. We don't see a student. We see a future leader. We'd like to offer you a paid mentorship track, remote, flexible, designed around you. Our youngest recruit ever. You won't just study equations. You'll help build the future." "This isn't college prep. It's mission prep." Ascendix executive team. Nyla stared at the screen. She couldn't speak. Dr. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Still just a math problem?" A Silicon Valley tech giant reaches out with an offer. And it's not for school. Nyla sat backstage beneath a halo of LED lights, her hands tucked into the sleeves of her blazer, her name badge clipped crookedly to her chest. Nyla Walker. Keynote speaker.
Not contestant.
Not troublemaker. Not suspended student. Speaker. Outside in a massive auditorium in downtown Chicago, over 2,000 educators, engineers, and student leaders waited to hear her speak. 3 months had passed since the walkout. Since the lawsuit. Since the district dropped the suspension under public pressure and tried to quietly issue a clarified statement. Nyla hadn't accepted their apology. She didn't have to. Because now, she was writing her own narrative. It started small, a podcast interview, then a panel discussion, then a remote Q&A with a STEM Equity Summit in Atlanta. Then came the calls from national organizations, the Department of Education, STEM Forward, Women Who Code. Everyone wanted to hear from the girl who solved the problem twice and shattered a system once. AscendX officially announced her as a junior fellow, their youngest ever. She worked on prototype modeling with their AI lab team remotely on weekends, attending stand-up meetings with grad students and engineers who initially laughed at her age, until she corrected a code set that had taken them a week to debug. Her inbox overflowed with requests. High school principals wanted her to speak. University recruiters asked for early applications. One woman from MIT said, "You're not a future applicant, you're a future faculty member." But none of it changed how Nyla moved. She still wore hoodies to every virtual event, still spoke in the same calm, clipped rhythm, still refused to perform her genius for applause. She wasn't here to impress. She was here to rebuild. That mission took shape when Dr. Elias introduced her to the Coalition for STEM Equity, a nationwide nonprofit pushing legislation to diversify gifted programs, reform math curriculum standards, and create pathways for underrepresented students. They asked her to help launch a campaign, Proof Over Perception, a movement built around one simple truth. The way students are seen before they speak often determines how they're heard after they speak. Nyla agreed, but only if she could lead from the front. And suddenly she wasn't just a survivor of academic racism. She was a strategist, a speaker, a symbol. Her first national conference was in Washington, D.C. At 15, she stood on stage beneath chandeliers, speaking into a mic, taller than her forehead, her voice echoing across a ballroom filled with state lawmakers, educators, and activists. "I'm not asking to be let in," she said, eyes steady. "I'm asking you to stop locking the doors." Applause exploded. Denise, seated in the third row, wiped her eyes. Afterward, dozens of students lined up to meet her. Not because she was famous, because they saw themselves in her. A girl from Detroit whispered, "They called me a cheater too." A boy from Phoenix said, "They told me I was too emotional for AP physics." A girl in a wheelchair said, "You made me feel possible." Each one gave her something she hadn't expected. Not validation, but velocity. Her message sharpened with every talk. Math isn't neutral if bias decides who gets to try. Brilliance doesn't ask for permission. We don't need new prodigies. We need systems that stop crushing the ones we already have. By the end of the month, she had met 2 senators. One of them asked if she'd be willing to help draft a proposal for gifted program reform. She didn't blink. Yes, and all the while she was still competing. Quietly, fiercely. Every Friday evening, she logged into Equation Underground tournaments, battling students from across the world, solving modular proofs in under 6 minutes, taking first place in back-to-back challenges. She didn't brag. She didn't post about it. She let the math speak, and it screamed. By April, she had earned a national ranking, one of the top 10 under-16 mathematicians in the country. The finals would be in Seattle. An elite, invite-only event. 2-day competition. All expenses paid. The kind of room where Ivy League scouts sat in the audience with notepads and early offer forms. Dr. Elias booked her flight. Her mother took leave from the hospital. Nyla packed her bag. 2 days before the flight, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed. Unfolded. "You think this is over. You think the cameras will protect you. Drop out, or you'll be reminded of your place. Math doesn't need martyrs." Nyla read it once, twice, then set it down. Just before nationals, she receives a death threat, warning her to drop out. The plane touched down in Seattle, under a gray morning sky, the kind that made everything look slightly overexposed, sharp, serious, and cold. Nyla stepped off the jet bridge, flanked by her mother, and Dr. Elias, Her hoodie was zipped to the top, her expression unreadable. She hadn't said a word about the threat letter. Not to her mother, not to Elias. She had simply placed it in her carry-on and packed 2 pencils instead of 1. This wasn't the first time someone had tried to silence her brilliance. It was just the loudest. The national finals were held at the Seattle Innovation Pavilion, a vast glass-paneled building overlooking the bay. Inside, banners read, National Math Vanguard Championship, shaping tomorrow's geniuses today. There were only 12 contestants now. Each had placed in regional circuits, crushed qualifying rounds, and made it through the brutal semifinals. Most were older, 17, 18. One girl had already been accepted into MIT. Nyla was the youngest, and the only one without a school affiliation badge. Her lanyard simply read, Independent Walker. It was a subtle reminder. She didn't represent anyone but herself. And still she had become the name everyone whispered about. Some whispered with admiration, others with suspicion. Security at the venue had doubled, after a tweet from a Stanford math professor went viral. If anything happens to this girl at the finals, the system has failed beyond measure. Event organizers scrambled to reassure the public. Nyla had a designated security liaison. Metal detectors were added. Bags were screened twice. Still, as she entered the auditorium, she could feel the tension in the air. Not all threats came through doors. Some were already seated. James Harrow was back, the golden boy from Woodbridge Academy, with his manicured haircut and flawless transcript. He was walking toward the prep lounge when he saw her. He stopped, smirked, then held up a hand in mock admiration. So they let the protest princess in after all. Nyla didn't flinch. He stepped closer. Word is you've got a whole legal team and tech startup behind you now. Must be nice. She looked him in the eye. Must be hard being average when no one's looking. His face tightened. You're not smarter. You're louder. Don't confuse the two. She walked past him without another word. The first round was a group logic challenge. 6 students, 2 rotating teams, 30 minutes. Nyla's group was assigned problem set delta, a multivariable optimization built around a hypothetical city grid. She read it once, twice, then spoke, calmly but confidently. If we isolate traffic weight and treat the corner zones as boundary conditions, we can reduce this to a matrix problem. The other students blinked, then followed her lead. They won. Round 2 was individual. Advanced number theory. 7 problems. 45 minutes. No calculators. No breaks. Nyla solved all 7. Only 2 others did the same. James was not one of them. At lunch she sat alone in the corner of the prep area, eating a protein bar and reviewing her notes. That's when James walked on stage early, without permission, and approached a standing mic at the edge of the judges' panel. He tapped it twice. The murmur in the room hushed. Then he said it. Before the final round, I'd like to make a statement. Everyone turned. He looked directly at the judges. I believe one of the competitors here today has been using proprietary material not available to the rest of us. Specifically, she's been coached with privileged systems. She's using formulas pulled from academic archives. That's not competition. That's theft. The room gasped. He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. All eyes turned to Nyla. She stood slowly, stepped forward. The moderator moved to cut the mic, but not before James added, Brilliance doesn't require a PR team. Then the mic cut. The damage was done. The judges huddled immediately. One walked to Nyla's table and asked her, quietly, are you using unauthorized material? No, she said. He nodded, wrote something down, and walked away. Elias, watching from the second row, stood up. But Nyla gestured for him to sit. She wasn't leaving. Not now. The final round began at 3:00 p.m. 12 contestants, 1 question, all seated on stage with cameras broadcasting live to national math academies, universities, and online viewers. The problem was announced. Develop a scalable model for population density fluctuations based on 3 environmental constraints and 2 economic variables. Provide the predictive equation and define all constants. Each student had a whiteboard, 2 markers, 45 minutes. Nyla exhaled, started writing. 15 minutes in, she was ahead. Her model accounted for both inflationary drift and migration arcs. Most students were still working on base variables. At minute 29, a judge walked up to her, took her board, read it, paused, then whispered something to the panel. The moderator stood, spoke into the mic. Contestant Nyla Walker, is being removed from the round pending investigation of rule violation. The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs, shouting. Elias stood up. What rule? One judge replied. Without the mic. There's suspicion she's using predictive equations not authorized for this level. Denise yelled from the audience. She built those herself. Nyla stood frozen. The moderator reached for her badge. You need to leave the stage, he said. But then, the audience exploded. A girl from the MIT team stood up and shouted, I saw her build it from scratch. Another student yelled, you didn't say those equations were banned. A professor near the judge's table slammed his notebook. That's her original work. You're punishing intuition. Then came a chant. Let her solve.
Let her solve.
Let her solve. The crowd rose. Reporters rushed forward. Security stepped in. The live stream caught it all. And Nyla? She didn't move. Not yet. She's disqualified mid-competition. But the audience erupts in protest. Nyla stood center stage, frozen. The marker still in her hand. The whiteboard, half filled with the final equation, stood behind her like unfinished testimony. And the crowd, the judges, the cameras, everyone was watching her now. The moderator had just announced her disqualification. And then the chant began. Let her solve. Let her solve. Let her solve. At first it was just the students in the first few rows. Then parents joined. Teachers. The volunteers. Even one of the younger contestants, who hadn't said a word all competition, rose to his feet, fist over chest, and shouted with them. It wasn't just noise. It was resistance. A refusal. Nyla stood there, silent in the middle of it, unsure what to do. She hadn't cried when they erased her the first time. Not when they lost her work. Not even when she was suspended. But right now, she felt her throat tighten. Not from sadness. From clarity. Because for the first time, the system wasn't able to swallow her in silence. Behind the judges' table, the panel scrambled. 3 judges huddled around the rulebook. One flipped frantically through policy pages, whispering. Another stared at the whiteboard. Nyla had been removed from, half the problem still solved, half the work already beyond what any other student had written. And then came the voice. Low. Authoritative. Final. The head judge, a tall man in his 60s with sharp features and a deliberate presence, raised one hand. The room went quiet instantly. He picked up the mic. We have reviewed the complaint, he said. We find no evidence of misconduct. A beat. Disqualification is reversed. Gasps rippled through the auditorium. Nyla blinked. Then, for the first time since arriving in Seattle, she smiled. Not wide. Just enough to mean it. But the judge wasn't done. In the interest of transparency, he continued, we are invoking Rule 9.2, an open demonstration. He looked directly at her. If you're willing, Miss Walker, we invite you to complete your solution. Lie. Nyla stepped forward. The stage lights didn't feel so heavy now. She picked up the marker. Her hand didn't shake. The unfinished whiteboard stared back at her, waiting. She picked up right where she left off. Line after line flowed from her wrist like language spoken fluently after years of being silenced. She factored constraints, labeled all constants, cross-verified the predictive coefficients, used a sliding index to stabilize population elasticity, integrated the economic variable with a converging limit. Her voice remained quiet, but her math roared. 20 minutes passed. When she stepped back, the room was absolutely silent. Then someone clapped, then another, then all of them. The judges didn't deliberate. They didn't need to. Her proof was clean, elegant, scalable, and original. The scoring panel posted the results on the auditorium screen. Nyla Walker, score 100 national champion. The only perfect score. The moderator tried to continue, but the room had already risen. Dr. Elias stood frozen in the aisle, hands covering his mouth. Denise didn't clap. She wept. And Nyla? She didn't raise her hands. She didn't bow. She just stepped back, quietly, and returned to her seat. She didn't need to perform her victory. She had already lived it. After the ceremony, as the crowd filtered out and medalists took photos, the head judge approached her. Nyla, he said, his voice quieter now, more human. May I speak with you privately? Dr. Elias nodded for her to go. Denise hesitated, but allowed it. The judge led her backstage into a side corridor, then into a small office. He sat behind the desk, closed the door, pulled out a phone. I want to make a call, he said. I wasn't supposed to do this. Not now. Nyla stared. He dialed. The line rang once, twice, then connected. Professor? Yes. I'm with her. A pause. Then he turned to Nyla and held the phone out. She wants to speak to you. Nyla took the phone.
Hello?
A woman's voice answered, smooth and precise. Miss Walker, my name is Dr. Valencia Bryce. I run the Emerging Minds program at Princeton. Nyla blinked. I watched what you did, and what you endured. A breath. If you're ready, we'd like to create a space for you here. Fully funded, fully flexible. Not next year. Now. The head judge makes a private call, offering her something she never expected. The acceptance letter came folded in crimson silk, inside a white envelope embossed with a single word, Harvard. It wasn't a dream anymore. Nyla Walker, 15 years old, once mocked at the whiteboard by a substitute teacher, had just been accepted into one of the most prestigious mathematics programs in the world. Not for the future, for now. A customized enrollment track. Full tuition, housing, mentorship, research access. A once-in-a-decade exception made for a mind they couldn't ignore. And they didn't find her through a transcript. They found her through a moment that went viral. For all the wrong reasons. The news broke like wildfire. Black teen math prodigy joins Harvard at from suspension to Ivy League. The rise of Nyla Walker. She was almost erased. Now she's unstoppable. Cable news invited her on air. She declined. Tech companies offered six-figure internships. She didn't answer. She didn't need their platforms. She had her own. Her final speech wasn't at Harvard. It was at Jefferson Middle School. A district-wide assembly. Court mandated by the settlement agreement reached after the civil rights complaint. Every teacher. Every administrator. Every student. All required to attend. Denise stood off stage, gripping the edge of the curtain. Dr. Elias adjusted Nyla's mic. You sure you want to do this here? He asked. Nyla nodded. This is where they tried to erase me. It's only right. The stage lights flickered on. The auditorium fell silent. Nyla stepped up to the podium. No notes in hand. No slides behind her. Just her. And the moment. I was 13. When I was told I was making too much noise. She paused. And I was 15 when Harvard told me they could still hear me. A murmur swept through the room. Principal Morris, seated in the front row, flinched. He'd returned to his position months earlier, quietly reinstated, after public pressure faded. He didn't clap, didn't blink, just stared. Nyla didn't look at him. She looked at the students. The problem wasn't the math, she said. It was who was holding the marker. She took a breath. When I solved the board problem, they laughed. When I solved it again, they got quiet. When I started winning, they tried to rewrite the rules. She stepped forward. They didn't care how smart I was. They cared how loud I became. The room was stone still. And here's the part they'll never understand. Being excellent won't save you. You still have to fight for your space. And sometimes, that fight looks like solving an equation in 10 minutes to prove you belong. Her voice cracked just once. I never asked to be the face of anything. I just wanted to do what I loved. And for that, I was called arrogant, difficult, disruptive. But what they really meant was, you're not supposed to be here. She stepped back from the mic, then leaned in again. To every student who's ever been made to feel invisible, you don't have to get a perfect score to matter. But if you ever do, don't let them erase it. The entire room stood. Some were clapping. Others, especially students, were crying. Even teachers wiped tears from the corners of their eyes. But not Principal Morris. He stayed seated. His hands didn't move. His face didn't change. But in his eyes was the one thing he hadn't shown before. Defeat. Outside, news vans waited. The speech would be aired nationally, shared millions of times. But the final seconds of the video didn't end with Nyla's face. They ended with a black screen. White text appeared, silent, piercing. For every Nyla Walker the world finally sees. How many are still being silenced? The video ends with a challenge to viewers. How many students like Nyla are still being silenced? If one brilliant girl almost got erased for solving a math problem too well, how many others are still shrinking their light just to survive the classroom? Type yes if you believe no student should be punished for being exceptional. Subscribe if this broke your heart and opened your eyes.